Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on this Tuesday, the 27th day of November 2012 edition. We have a jam-packed radio broadcast coming up today. We have the head of UKIP, Nigel Farage, who's been battling incredible tyranny inside the EU, joining us at the start of the next hour. We have Lord Christopher Monckton, also one of the founders of UKIP, joining us with a ton of important news, including libertarians and conservatives now having their children taken, and the government will not apologize. They say it's racist to be pro-sovereignty of England, of the UK, or any other country or region. That is coming up after the break, and we have a lot of other off-the-chart news. But let me premiere at least a section of this special report now where I break down Zbigniew Brzezinski. Here it is. Alex Jones here with some incredibly positive news. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who is a top globalist advisor to David Rockefeller as well as the House of Rothschild, recently gave a speech in Poland where he told the global elite that the entire world population is waking up to the external New World Order. And he went on to even say that political awakening and nationalism and resistance is threatening their takeover of society. The full speech is posted in an article at Infowars.com by Paul Watson. Brzezinski, populist resistance is derailing the New World Order. Quote, rise in political activism, a threat to external control. During a recent speech in Poland, former U.S. National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski warned fellow elitists that worldwide resistance, that's a quote, movement, to external control driven by populist activism is threatening to derail the move towards a New World Order. Now, before we show the clip, remember Hillary Clinton said the same thing a few years ago, that they're losing the info war.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war. I'll be very blunt in my assessment.
No, the U.S. isn't losing the info war. The foreign mega banks that brag that they've hijacked our federal government, they're beginning to lose the info war. Worldwide, the free peoples of this planet are discovering the private, corporate, fascistic world government that poses as a liberal socialism, and they are waking up to it and resisting it. Here is a short excerpt from Brzezinski's speech.
In recent decades, worldwide social change has experienced unprecedented historical acceleration, particularly because instant mass communications, such as radio, television, and the internet, cumulatively have been stimulating a universal awakening of mass political consciousness. Persistent and highly motivated populist resistance of politically awakened and historically resentful peoples to external control has proven to be increasingly difficult to suppress.
2 years previous, he made similar comments to the Council on Foreign Relations of Canada.
That for the first time in all of human history, mankind is politically awakened. That's a total new reality. And no matter where you go, politics is a matter of social engagement, and most people know what is generally going on in the world, and are consciously aware of global iniquities, inequalities, lack of respect, exploitation.
Brzezinski's new book that came out earlier this year gets into more detail, where he hits the panic button to the elite controllers and tells them they had better wake up and understand humanity is awake and staring. So this is some more positive news. Now, normally I don't just believe something Brzezinski's saying in a speech, but I, from my own research, know that what he's saying is accurate, and many globalist white papers that are not meant for public reading but are available are raising the same alarm. They know that humanity is waking up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll air the rest of this report coming up later. Lord Christopher Monckton, straight ahead. The global. Monday through Friday, We're here 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern, blasting out on XM 166, over 140 AM and FM affiliates, WWCR, 100,000 watt worldwide service, and #1 when it comes to talk radio on the free audio streams and podcast at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. We are kicking off a 3-hour transmission here. Thank you for joining us. We'll be joined in a moment by Lord Christopher Monckton, one of the founders of the UK Independence Party, which is a mainline, constitutional, pro-sovereignty, libertarian, fastest-growing party in the country, one of the largest, electing all sorts of members to Parliament, but also the European Union Parliament. They're now taking the children of their members, saying, well, we got to tip your UKIP, you can't have kids. We're taking them. So when you see the Marxist, and they're always saying, you don't like socialism, you're a racist, this is their plan. This is their program. So we're going to be looking at this. And then the head of the UKIP party, member of the European Union Parliament from England, Nigel Farage, is also going to be popping in. And then John McAfee, the guy that's on the run, the inventor of the software, he's a listener of ours. He's contacted us. We've confirmed it's him in Belize. And he is going to break down the fact that he's being framed for that murder down there. He's going to be popping in on the show, so that'll be newsmaking as well here, obviously, but also important because we do want to give people a good hearing out. The Belizean authorities are well known for classic piratical corruption and frame-ups. I've been down in Belize City many times. Let me tell you, since I was a small child, that is a scary place, and I've been all over the third world. Very lovely country overall, formerly a British holding, but now formerly, but now it's its own little area. So that's going to be coming up as well. Obviously, we've got a lot of other top news up at Infowars.com and prisonplanet.com. The mightydrudgereport.com is linked to our report breaking down the numbers that we got a few days after, because they come out a few days after. All-time record gun sales on Black Friday, and people being questioned why they're buying guns. They fear the government, who openly says they want to ban all semi-autos. Also, experts to study whether robots will exterminate humanity. That's going on in a big official study at Cambridge University. That was the subject of our October issue of InfoWars magazine. There are a few back issues of this left. When you subscribe, you get the next 12 issues plus the last issue when it's available. There are a few of these left if you sign up in the month of December now. We'll put the last few issues in for you so you can see the end of humanity, the rise of the robots, DARPA, the real Skynet. Very, very important InfoWars magazine. Also a great gift. 12 of these. You can give people a gift subscription. 12 of them delivered to their door. Big, glossy, color magazine with incredible illustrations and articles. Great way to wake people up. That's available at InfoWarsStore.com. To subscribe or call 888-25-33139. Now, we only got him for this segment, the next, so we're going to go to him now. The UK, and as well as Australia and the US for a great extent, but especially the UK, are testing grounds where they arrested BBC reporter Robin Page, who had a rural affairs show, because he said rural communities deserve the same rights as Muslims and homosexuals. They arrested him. We had him on the show and said the word homosexual is hateful. It'd be like if you called a white person a Caucasian, would they be arrested for racism? It shows where now a type of voodoo against science itself, you say heterosexual, homosexual, Caucasoid, Asian, you're arrested. They have spies in restaurants to hear of you criticize the open borders having to pay welfare, whether it's to white Eastern Europeans or black Africans. You're arrested and hauled in as part of a Soviet show trial. This is 1 inch from the re-education camps. It's come out in congressional testimony and FBI files that Obama, who was at meetings with Bill Ayers, where they talked about putting 50 million Americans in re-education camps. Yes, it's really happening. They've said if you don't agree with global warming and don't want to pay them carbon taxes, you should be arrested. That's in our newspapers, hundreds of them. It's in the UK papers. And Lord Monckton, they've called for his arrest. And he joins us, former top advisor, a scientific advisor to Margaret Thatcher, inventor, journalist, former newspaper editor of major dailies. Here is a headline: UKIP foster couple, our agony. And proudly, the town council says they were reported anonymously. They were members of the UK Independence Party, and they said that is racism. Well, right there's total lawsuit, because if they were racist, that's their free speech, but they're not. UKIP is openly fast-growing and scaring people, calling for the EU not to be making 80+% of their laws, people of all races, religions in it. They're afraid of them. The Marxists are afraid of them because they control the left and the right in that country. And now joining us is Lord Monckton. They've demanded an apology taking their kids, but they're saying they're not going to apologize right now. So this shows how frightening this has gotten, where people are now arrested in the euro. If they criticize the euro, that's being called racism. It's like when we say we don't want government-run health care, it's a nightmare. They say on MSNBC you're a racist. This is how the communists operate. Lord Monckton, thank you for joining us. Can you break down exactly what we're facing and correct me if I'm wrong?
Well, in fact, you're absolutely right, Alex, as usual. What has happened here is that Rotherham Council, which is a local county authority, which is controlled by Marxists from the extreme hard left of the Labour Party, which seems to be most of the Labour Party these days, they took away 2 foster children from very good and experienced foster parents in Rotherham who have looked after many foster children before, often from very difficult backgrounds. And these 2 children were from an ethnic minority, and they had come into Britain via the EU immigration policy, by which Britain no longer controls her own borders. Now, the couple belong to the United Kingdom Independence Party, to which I also belong. Until recently, I was its deputy leader. Now I'm the leader of its Scottish division. And this party is not a racist party. It never has been, and it most certainly isn't. The party does want sensible control of immigration, but not done on a racial basis at all. But the left are very, very frightened, as you know, Alex, of any dissent at all. Any really effective party in opposition to the left, they are frightened of it, and they will use techniques like this for the sake of trying to blacken its name nationally. And this has spectacularly blown up in their face, because the couple went public and they said, we are not racists. The party we belong to is not racist. There is absolutely no excuse for this. We were not given any chance to have our say before the children were taken away. And I think what's going to happen is that because the local authority won't apologize, which of course is what it should have done straight away, the couple will eventually go to court and ask for what we call judicial review of the administrative decision.
Well, they have to, because it'll stand the charge that they're racist, because they belong to the fastest growing, one of the largest parties, with prestigious people like yourself and Mr. Farage leading it.
Well, and we've also just converted Lord Hesketh, who used to be the leader of the Conservative Party in the House of Lords. He is now a member of UKIP. We have Stuart Wheeler, who's our treasurer. He's a millionaire. He's been talking to 8 Conservative backbenchers about whether they would like to defect from the Conservative Party and join the United Kingdom Independence Party. This is a rapidly growing party, the second largest party in Britain in the elections to the European Parliament. This is a major force to be reckoned with. It may well indeed be the largest party after the upcoming...
But never mind your real policies. We'll just call you racist.
So that's what they do. See, they're frightened of us. They're very, very worried that we're beginning to make inroads not only into the Conservative Party, but also into the Labour Party, because the Labour Party has been always very soft on immigration, on the simple metric that people who come from other countries and live here tend to vote left rather than right. And so the Labour Party wants to let in as many immigrants as it can while pretending to be reasonably tough on immigration. That's the name of the game. And so they don't like UKIP pointing things like this out. Now, in pointing these things out, we are not being racialist. All we're doing is saying that we need to make sure that we have reasonable control of our borders.
Well, you're completely overrun. And here's the deal. We bring in 30 million illegals, and they all vote for gun control, basically. They all vote to take our rights. That's the socialist mode. Bring in foreigners who are affiliated with the state and then outvote the original citizens. And now it's getting so bad in Europe and so bad in England and so bad here. People are finally waking up as our economies go bankrupt and as the Treasury goes bankrupt.
That's exactly it, because we can no longer afford to allow people from all over the world to come here and go straight on the dole and claim benefits from hard-working, working-class British people who are paying ever larger amounts of taxation, not to support themselves and their families, but to support the families of people from all over the world who, on any view, have absolutely no right to be here and have contributed nothing themselves to our society. Now, it's not racialist to point this out. Even the Conservative Party is now beginning to say this. And the left are becoming frightened.
But it came out with Tony Blair. They had a secret deal for a decade with the EU to bring in unlimited illegals, criminals,
that's right.
You name it.
He kept this quiet, and he didn't let anybody know this was happening. The Conservatives were too lazy to ask. We found out. We broke the story. And, of course, the left hate us for this. They know that now we are effectively replacing the Conservative Party as the opposition because we know the facts, we smoke out what's going on, and we then come out and say so. And they don't like this. So the left are now more frightened of us than they are of the Conservative Party because they can see that the way things are going, the United Kingdom Independence Party is going to replace the Conservative Party as the party of the right in Britain. And we are much more effective operators than they are. I was in a meeting in the House of Commons just a few hours ago with the President of the Czech Republic on the European question. And he was saying, well, you know, we all now need to think about whether the euro has a future, whether the European Union has a future. And he said they will call us racialists, even for raising these questions.
That's right. Lord Monckton, stay there. Incredible. We'll hear about your meeting with a European Union president in a moment. We'll be right back. Lord Monckton will be with us till about 40 after. He's going to give us a breakdown on the tyrant's latest attacks on our liberties via the Green Movement cover they run. He is probably the world expert geopolitically on what the socialist and Marxist and basically armies of evil control freak dumb are up to. But you need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, I have found bribery going on at the Capitol that made the front page of the paper. And they called me up and asked if I was a racist, and it had nothing to do with race. And I said, why are you asking me this? And they said, we want to just know if you're a racist. And then the guy started giggling on the other end of the phone. They know it's a weapon. Okay? And you need to understand, as Lord Monckton has traveled all over the world, is exposed, the carbon taxes will kill 1 billion people, most of them brown. So Lord Monckton actually goes and feeds people starving in Haiti. And I'm so sick of the eugenicist, population reductionist left calling themselves left. Thomas Jefferson was a liberal. These people are control freak, authoritarian monsters who want control of the resources. Lord Monckton, I'm sorry I'm ranting, but it's so over the top to be constantly called racist by these people when they are certified, from my research, absolute anti-humans, period.
Well, in particular, they are anti-black and brown and yellow humans. People who tend to be poorer than the average are the ones who are going to get hurt first and worst by their environmental policies. There's no doubt about this. I've just been reading the next UN climate report. They come out every 5 years. There's another one coming out next year. And I am now an appointed expert reviewer for that document. And it is full of the same sort of rubbish that's in the previous documents. And I've had to write so far 70 pages of comments saying you're going to have to clean this up and start doing honest science again, because the kind of policies that these people advocate using the bogus science from the UN's climate panel are policies that will indeed be making poor people poorer still. I don't think I would go so far as to say as that they're going to end up killing 1 billion people. There have been books by people like Paul Ehrlich saying that they would like to see the population of the world to reduced from its present 7 billion down to 1 billion people, losing 6 billion.
Sure. Just to interrupt, because you raised that, reading your papers at Science and Public Policy, and give that URL out for folks. If they implemented the carbon taxes of Copenhagen, there's already 30+ million people starving to death, 50 million, total. If you take associated deaths from malnutrition, there's an additional 20 million on the 30. But I was actually going off some of your research and some other research. I mean, correct me. If they implemented their plans, would it not be 1 billion dead over a decade?
If they get away with what they're trying to do, then very large numbers of people in poorer countries will die. It's very difficult to put numbers on it, frankly, because it depends on how much of their extremist nonsense they get away with. And I'm glad to say that gradually more and more scientists are now standing up and saying, look, we can't turn our backs and just be quiet anymore. We're going to take the risk of speaking out, even though we will then be called racist and all sorts of other names, and they will vilify us and go after our reputations. I've had it all thrown at me, Alex. Oh, you say you're a member of the House of Lords, and they say you're not, and you're just a racist. All these childish insults, anything rather than talk about the actual science, which doesn't add up. There's been no global warming now, this is breaking news, for 16 full years. None whatever. And here they are writing yet another UN.
And by the way, you were the first to break that down with scientific research. They now admit all that in the news. But going back in the brief time we have in this segment, longer segment coming up, Lord Monckton, go back to your meeting with the Czech president there at the House of Lords.
Yes, and this was fascinating. It was the House of Commons, actually. This was fascinating because quite a large audience came. And he was saying that the left are gradually pushing their way in, taking everything over. And he said that you now really can't tell the difference between the major policies of the EU and communism. He used the word. He has seen this, and he's finding it increasingly difficult to restrain himself from speaking out about it. He's just got a very good book just come out called Europe, The Shattering of Illusions. Maybe you should get it at the Alex Jones store. It's a very good book.
Yes.
Very short, but very clear. And it explains the process by which the European Union is dismantling democracy in exactly the same way as the environmental movement are doing it. And, of course, the European Union is right in there working with the environment.
Well, they call themselves a new Soviet. Stay there. Break that down. I'll give you the floor for 10 minutes when we come back, and then I know you've got to go to another important meeting. Lord Christopher Monckton is our guest, and then I'll go through all the geopolitical news, economic, you name it. It's all coming up after Lord Monckton leaves us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm Alex Jones with PrisonPlanet.tv, where we're streaming video of the radio show right now. The Democratic Party is now running around saying that guns are terrorist weapons. So now they want to take your guns in the name of the war on terror. The chairman of the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has provided aspiring terrorists with an idea. Use a .22 rifle to take out power transformers. And they're now saying we've got to ban guns because terrorists may use them to shoot up power transformers. Just hoping copycats go out and do it. That's coming up. Okay, Lord Monckton, you've got the floor here for the next 10 minutes. Break down the points you're making. This is not hyperbole. The way they've bankrupted Europe with socialism, then their answer is bring in even more foreigners who then threaten to riot if you don't raise taxes again, to then engage in more social engineering. France is over 80% tax for people that actually work. Where is all this headed? Where is Europe going? And as England and the rest of the UK starts to wake up to the fact that you're under this domination and EU bureaucrats are exempt from taxes and the parliament is ceremonial, where does it all end? And what is the latest, Lord Monckton, on their latest strategies to shut the power off in the West and seize control?
Well, what they're going to do next is they're already paying 3,000 EU bureaucrats more than the Prime Minister gets, which he gets $250,000 a year. And there are now 3,000 EU bureaucrats who get more money per year than the British Prime Minister, and they don't have to pay tax on it, and he does. So this is becoming a pampered overclass, which is gradually destroying the economies of all the countries that belong to it. There's a big row going on at the moment between Britain, Germany, France on the one hand, and we're on the paying end, if you like, of Europe, and the receiving countries who, as you say, are demanding more money, more social engineering, more feather bedding, and they're saying that we who are relatively prosperous should be paying for this, and the British people no longer want to do that, want out. If we were to leave the European Union, then we would no longer be running an annual deficit. Britain is a prosperous enough country that if we stopped being in the European Union, we'd have no more annual deficit and we could start paying back the national debt. And if we don't leave the European Union, then Britain will go down, as many other countries of the European will go down, as the ever-growing costs of various welfare handouts completely outstrip any possible capacity of taxpayers to pay for it. You're quite right. The top rate of tax on the rich in France is now 75 or 80%. In Britain, it's already gone up to 50%. It was 40. I got it down, in fact, from 60 to 40 when I was working at 10 Downing Street, and I worked with the then finance minister to take it down to 40. Huge resistance from the bureaucrats until they realized that we were getting more money from the rich by taxing them at a lower rate.
And you're now able to force the prime minister to actually act like a constitutionalist, and they're now stealing and adopting, which I guess is a good thing if they actually carry it through, the UKIP platform.
Well, of course, the Prime Minister is now in a very hard place because his backbenchers, the people who don't have jobs in his government, but are all sitting in Parliament wondering what to do with themselves because Parliament no longer has any role in making legislation. That's all done for us now by Europe. It's just a kind of ceremonial body, as you say. So they're beginning to become quite fractious, and they have realized that while UKIP remains a growing force in British politics, and a very rapidly growing force, then never again can the Conservatives win an overall majority in Parliament. And if they can't win an overall majority, they can't govern on their own.
And by the way, you are the model. What UKIP has done, if we could get a real constitutional, libertarian, real conservative, pro-liberty type group in the Republicans, we could reverse things as well. But this is the globalist model.
Your Tea Party is doing a very good job in that general direction. You now have many Tea Party candidates in the Republican Party, but they haven't yet penetrated right to the top. And there was the problem. For the second time running, the Republicans chose the one candidate who arguably didn't have the slightest chance of ever beating Obama. When I first heard they'd picked Romney instead of, say, Herman Cain, who would have beaten Obama into a cocked hat, I knew then that they were going to lose. And sure enough, they have. And you can say that maybe Obama fiddled the vote in various places, and the Democrats do this much more ruthlessly on a larger scale than the Republicans do. But the fact is that Obama won it because the Republicans don't have the fight.
That's right. Herman Cain or anybody who had fight would have destroyed Obama. Mitt Romney tried to become Obama, and now their argument is, oh, we need to become more socialist. That's why conservatives didn't win. An absolute manipulation.
Well, this is the trouble. And of course, if you want to beat Obama, then do the one thing where he's really vulnerable, and that is take him to court because he has put up on the White House website a birth certificate that's manifestly bogus. I was approached by lawyers in the United States last week and asked to produce an affidavit looking at the evidence that the sheriff had assembled and working out what were the mathematical chances that that document was genuine if their evidence was correct. And the answer is that there was a chance that it was genuine. It was 1 in about 75 sextillion that it was genuine. And the rest of the time, it was very, very clear this is a bogus document. But will the Republicans lift a finger to do anything about this? No, they won't. They're terrified of the left, which on issues which really matter to it, like keeping Obama in power, they will do anything to destroy and discredit the reputation of anyone who did raise that matter. And the right in America have become frightened of this. They're terrified for their reputation. They won't speak out against Obama, and that's how he got away with it. And the answer is you do have to fight. When you have somebody who possibly was born somewhere else, but certainly has an alien outlook on the future of America, and he's there in the White House, it's no good sitting back and letting him dismantle your country. The Republican Party has got to learn to fight on ground where it's going to win.
And by the way, going back to UKIP being really the model over here, and some of the things Ron Paul's done, and Campaign for Liberty being the model, you guys, for what, over a decade, have been hammering that the EU makes most of your laws when no one was listening. Now, and I'm not just saying this, I read British newspapers every day, and UK papers, and EU papers. You're now setting the agenda in spades, in triplicate, even though most of the time they don't give you credit. That doesn't matter. The real value is you're beginning to set the agenda. People in the UK are realizing there is an authoritarian takeover. People in the European nations who are being told to give up whatever sovereignty you had left to the bureaucrats. They're waking up. Just like if we expose globalists have hijacked us, and that global corporate interests have hijacked us, and that mega banks brag that they've hijacked us, and that Obama has told Congress that NATO and the UN is over our military, if we simply expose what they've arrogantly bragged about, their arrogance will bring them down if we just do what Ron Paul did in his farewell address. Expose that it is a global government run by criminal bureaucrats and their financial backers like George Soros. Lord Monckton, isn't it time to just embrace reality as you've done and admit what we're under?
I think what you have to do is to say, we will not let democracy die. We will not allow the vision of your founding fathers to disappear. We will not allow these bureaucrats worldwide, the Brzezinskis of this world, to set up a global government behind our backs and then inflict it upon us, whether on the excuse of the environment or any other excuse. We will not allow regional governments like that of the EU any longer to remain as unelected and undemocratic as they are now. We will win our democracy back. And those on the left who don't like it, get this. We are not going to allow you to prevail. We, the people, still believe in ourselves. And for as long as we believe in ourselves, whatever you try to do, whatever bureaucratic structure you try to create, you will not prevail. We will prevail whether you like it or not.
Well said, Lord Monckton. I want to give your website out. It's on screen for prisonplanet.tv viewers. scienceandpublicpolicy.org. A veritable encyclopedia of graphs, documents, proof. And again, I've been watching Lord Monckton for more than a decade before he became popular here in the United States. And just it's uncanny how accurate he's been predicting, exposing their frauds. I mean, if there's one guy shoving the sword into the dragon's heart, it's Lord Monckton. That's why he's demonized and attacked and lied about so savagely. The system hopes that you're not paying attention and just buys into their surface attacks, but more and more that's not working. In just the 2 minutes we've got left, I know you're going to be traveling to the Middle East soon. What is the latest UN global government power grab that we're facing?
Well, what they're going to do next is they're going to try to establish a global climate regime with the UN in charge. This is the thing they've been trying to do all along. They were thwarted at Copenhagen because I got hold of an early copy of the draft treaty in which they were going to set up a world government. We've stopped that, but they're still trying. And they're trying to say that the problem is ever more urgent, but that can't be right. Because since the second assessment report of the UN in 1995, there's been virtually no global warming since then. It stopped. Doesn't mean it stopped forever. I would expect to see it resume next year, actually, but only at a very slow rate. A rate so slow that we don't have to worry about it. And so what we'll be doing in Qatar at the 18th of these annual climate conferences, where the UN little by little is trying to build itself a new power base around the environmental movement, we will be there to stop them. We're not going to allow anti-scientific extremism to prevail. We're going to say that after 16 years without any global warming, and in 16 of the 18 years they've been meeting, there hasn't been any global warming. The time has come to face reality, realize that the computer models were tweaked so as deliberately to get it wrong and exaggerate the problem, realize that in fact there is no problem. Hurricane Sandy had nothing to do with global warming. It was a purely natural...
Well, this is pure voodoo, like witch doctors 5,000 years ago saying, give me the power or the devil god will eat the sun during an eclipse. I mean, they get on the news, they tell school children here, I know they do it in England, hey, you saw that thunderstorm? That's because your dad had a fire in the fireplace.
That's right. It's all this pathetic dumbness. I mean, if you look at Harvard University, 2,800 undergraduates have just voted to tell the university that it must take all of its $30 billion investments out of fossil fuel companies because they're destroying the planet. Of course, they're perfectly happy to do their studies by the light of the electricity generated by these fossil fuels, but no, they get on their high horse and they make these kind of pietistic statements. Now, these are the people who are supposed to be the future leaders of America. And it frankly makes me sick that they are as easily fooled and as scientifically ignorant as they are. The fact is we now know they've got it wrong. Here, just very quickly, going back to 2008, when the world's leading climate modelers said that if there was 15 years or more without global warming, the models would be wrong. They would have exaggerated the problem. Well, hey, there's now been 16 years without global warming, so on their own criteria, the modelers have failed. And the entire basis for this scam in the computer models is now proven to be wrong by the failure of that.
But, sir, as you know, in closing, there are useful idiots at the lower level. This is their religion of feeling good and being control freaks. That's why they're really attracted to it, like moths to flame. At its heart, it's about shutting off the West industry, because the globalists in all their admissions say that the wealth engine doesn't make us dependent on socialism. They want to shut it down to make us stand in line like poor Russians to get sausages and nylons.
Here's the answer to this, Alex. If you go on to scienceandpublicpolicy.org and download what we're calling the futility report. It's done by my colleague Chip Knappenberger, and he took my equations on how to work out how much it costs to make global warming go away and how little global warming you will make to go away if you try to intervene. And he has worked out that if you shut down the whole United States from this year, then by 2050, in about 40 years' time, the world would be 0.08 Celsius degrees cooler. That is a 1/12 of a Celsius degree, a 1/6 of a Fahrenheit degree cooler than it is today. And if you kept on not having a United States for 100 years until 2100, then the world would be 1/3 of a Fahrenheit degree.
But then the final key, as you know, General Electric and others, they are exempt from having their coal power plant shut down. So it's a purely cold-blooded mafia operation to shut down their competition, and then they can have artificial scarcity and make you buy from them for 3 or 4 times what it previously was.
That's exactly it. And of course, all these huge subsidies paid to windmills and solar panels, all of that is designed to transfer wealth from taxpayers via these companies into the pockets of the Democrat Party over there. The Scott Nats here are doing it, so are the Labour Party. And what is happening is that those who are paying through their higher electricity prices and higher taxes to subsidize these useless windmills, the companies that run the windmills are making so much money in subsidy that they are then making donations to the left-wing parties that are pushing all
It's a money laundering operation.
It's a money laundering order, so by which taxpayers' money ends up in the pockets of the political parties that are backing the environmental movement. That's what this is really all about. It's a money and power grab by left-wing political parties in the specious...
Because they cannot produce. I've never met anyone who is a leftist operative that knows how to tie their shoelaces. They have horrible children. They can never have a business. They are mentally defective midgets who want to run our lives.
That is exactly the problem we now face. These are people who, they are intellectual pygmies. They've never run so much as a bath for themselves in their lives. The second footman does that for them. These are useless people. They're useless appendages on society who have managed to get themselves into positions of power, and they are intent, and let's get this clear, intent upon shutting down the West, if they can, without a shot being fired, by fooling the political and bureaucratic class into thinking that we have a problem that we don't have, and which, even if we had this problem, Alex, of global warming, it would still be at least 10 times cheaper to do nothing about it today and to pay to adapt to any global warming and its consequences.
But again, it's about them casting themselves as saviors of the world, and then they can decide who can have a business, who can live 220-square-foot homes where they charge you giant property taxes on them. Incredible. Lord Monckton, thank you for all the time, and we'll talk to you hopefully when you're at the next UN conference.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be there in just a few days' time. I'm going to Lithuania first to speak to the Free Market Institute there about the future of Europe. From there, straight to Qatar. So in a few days' time, get in touch. We'll do another interview straight from the horse's mouth, as always. So God bless you, Alex, and God bless America.
Thank you, guys. Set it up now, then, since we've got him online. Thank you. There goes Lord Monckton. I'm going to skip this network break because this information is too important. We're going to get him on next week from the latest UN conference, and I've got New American Magazine posted at prisonplanet.com. Alex Newman, another excellent article, and it's got links to the UN announcement. They want global carbon taxes now, and Obama is announcing that he's going to have all these speeches saying we can get the welfare paid and have the bailouts if we have a carbon tax and a VAT. And they will shut our economy down. That is their goal. These people are not idiots. They are criminals. And they want to run your life. They relish it. A powerful person doesn't want to run your life, would be embarrassed. Powerful people just want to go be alone. Powerful people are reclusive. Really powerful people are artists and just want to be left alone. Scum want to sit around like a bunch of peacocks and run our lives. And I'm sick of them. And I want the scum out of my life, and I know you want them out of your life. Now, I aired part of this right at the first of the show, but I want to air this now because this is a very special report that we're premiering here on the radio. If you're a PrisonPlanet.tv viewer, we're going to archive it there as well. But I break down Zbigniew Brzezinski panicking that humanity is awakening. That's why they're trying to rush the authoritarian takeover now, because they know their window's closing. But that doesn't mean we're going to win this thing if you don't get angry and get motivated. You have got to understand, folks, that it's not work to fight tyranny. It is an absolute directive. We didn't ask for this fight. We're not looking for it. But we are not going to sit here while a bunch of cross-eyed New World Order trash runs our lives. It's time to call them out. It's time to stop being cowed by them. It's time to stop having this Western hospitality where we're all supposed to be gentlemanly and bend over to these people. It's over. It's over. It's over. Say it's over. Own it. I don't believe in magic stuff like The Secret and all that, and you say something and it makes it happen. If you say something and it's feasible and you work towards it, a lot of times what you originally wanted won't happen. Something even better will happen. Okay? It's very simple. And you have got to envision the New World Order in ashes. You've got to envision an enlightened, empowered society moving towards Thomas Jefferson's dreams of true equality and true freedom through free association, not the authoritarianism. I have studied the so-called left. The right is just another version of them to move you towards the control. The left-right paradigm is false in that it's controlled, but there are real agendas within the left, within the right. And the so-called left are authoritarian demons who fancy themselves social engineers, anthropologists, sociologists, psychologists who think you're a dumb animal and who think they're programming you. These are grasping nothings. These are people not meant to be in charge. They are not meant to clean toilets. They are sophistic, fake intellectual garbage who hates beauty and who hates strength and who hates wealth. They don't care about having the wealth for themselves. They want to destroy you. Misery loves company. These people hate themselves, and they're not strong enough to realize it and better themselves. They want to kill humanity because they want to kill themselves. And now I'm telling them their deepest dreams. Yes, you want to kill yourself. You hate yourself because you are the trash of the earth. And I see you, and I know who you are, and we are going to get you. You understand that? You started this. You started this with humanity and our species, and now the switches are being thrown in human survival mechanisms that you've tried to turn off. You just flipped them the other direction. And you can feel at a spiritual level our hands wrapping around your little throats. You think you're going to hang us on your little petard? You think you're going to hang us in your noose? You're going to fall in your own hole. You're going to find our necks don't break so easily. All right. Let's go ahead and go to this breakdown. Here's Zbigniew Brzezinski panicking. Stay with us. Alex Jones here with some incredibly positive news. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who is a top globalist advisor to David Rockefeller as well as the House of Rothschild, recently gave a speech in Poland where he told the global elite that the entire world population is waking up to the external New World Order. And he went on to even say that political awakening and nationalism and resistance is threatening their takeover of society. The full speech is posted in an article at Infowars.com by Paul Watson. Brzezinski, populist resistance is derailing the New World Order. Quote, rise in political activism, a threat to external control. During a recent speech in Poland, former U.S. National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski warned fellow elitists that worldwide resistance, that's a quote, movement, to external control driven by populist activism is threatening to derail the move towards a new world order. Now, before we show the clip, remember Hillary Clinton said the same thing a few years ago, that they're losing the info war.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war. I'll be very blunt in my assessment.
No, the U.S. isn't losing the info war. The foreign mega banks that brag that they've hijacked our federal government, they're beginning to lose the info war. Worldwide, the free peoples of this planet are discovering the private, corporate, fascistic world government that poses as a liberal socialism, and they are waking up to it and resisting it. Here is a short excerpt from Brzezinski's speech.
In recent decades, worldwide social change has experienced unprecedented historical acceleration, particularly because instant mass communications, such as radio, television, and the internet, cumulatively have been stimulating a universal awakening of mass political consciousness. Persistent and highly motivated populist resistance of politically awakened and historically resentful peoples to external control has proven to be increasingly difficult to suppress.
2 years previous, he made similar comments to the Council on Foreign Relations of Canada.
That for the first time in all of human history, mankind is politically awakened. That's a total new reality. And no matter where you go, politics is a matter of social engagement, and most people know what is generally going on in the world, and are consciously aware of global iniquities, inequalities, lack of respect, exploitation.
Brzezinski's new book that came out earlier this year gets into more detail, where he hits the panic button to the elite controllers and tells them they had better wake up and understand humanity is awake and staring. So this is some more positive news. Now, normally I don't just believe something Brzezinski's saying in a speech, but I, from my own research, know that what he's saying is accurate, and many globalist white papers that are not meant for public reading but are available are raising the same alarm. They know that humanity is waking up to their anti-human, anti-family, eugenicist agenda. So to all the info warriors out there, not just in the United States but worldwide, we are gaining ground. All of the globalist activities to suppress us, all of their acceleration of the police state is a sign of their weakness. That's right. Free humanity is awakening. That's right. And so if you're listening to this transmission, you are the resistance. We are now into hour number 2, and he's just joining us for one segment because he's under the weather. The head of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage, is going to be joining us. In fact, I'm looking for my folder with his info. Here it is. He's going to be joining us to talk about EU implosion and a lot more, and how they're now targeting members of the UK Independence Party and taking their children away from them, their foster children away from them, saying it's racist to want national sovereignty. This is how the Marxists operate. Let's go ahead and actually punch up here while we can, drudgereport.com. You can see Paul Joseph Watson's article is the top story there, and we're going to be getting into some of that report today after Mr. Farage leaves us. Black Friday gun sales hit new record high. Overwhelming demand crashes FBI background check center. Isn't that convenient? So they'll just deny you the Second Amendment because their computers crash. Who knows if that's even true? And we're going to be going over that report as well today. Hat tip to drudgereport.com for helping get this key news out to everyone, because after all, we are all in this together. And then after he leaves us, we have John McAfee, and I've confirmed it's him, from Belize, from an undisclosed location, wanted reportedly for murder. And he says he didn't do it, and they're basically framing him. And he said that he got raided by the police and stuff a few months before that. It's all just been bizarre. And, yeah, I mean, I can believe the Belizean police are corrupt. I have watched them. I don't know, I've probably been to Belize. Let's not exaggerate. 8 times in my life. And I stay well clear of Belize City, formerly British Honduras. I stay well away from their police. They are well known for being about as corrupt as it gets. Though they're not shaking people down, it's just you don't want to mess with them because they've got other things that are making them money, like narcotics trafficking. So they're not really in the business of shaking too many people down, but they do that sometimes to business owners. So we're going to be getting the antivirus software maker on with us, who is on the lam. You never know who's a listener. Usually we get contacted by famous people. They don't want to come on the show. They just want to hat tip to us, and we appreciate that. And but we're going to be breaking that down with him at the bottom of the hour. And then coming up, Obama to appeal to the nation and the public on fiscal cliff. He'll want more taxes, of course, to give to foreign banks. And also unexpected data from the Large Hadron Collider suggesting that collisions may be producing a new type of matter, which is what a lot of scientists said. It could create a black hole, a strangelet, antimatter, and could destroy us. And they're doing thousands of tests, and any of them could destroy us. You know, they had equations for atomic weapons in 1900, Max Planck and others. And they've had equations since the 20s for weapons that could destroy the whole planet. And that's the type of stuff they're looking for with this. But the elite says, you know, they're going to do it nevertheless. And that ties in with Cambridge University Center will study technologies that pose extinction level risk to humanity. And Paul Watson has a big article up at Infowars.com breaking that down and tying into some of the history of that. Let me give you some of these headlines here. Experts to study whether robots will exterminate humanity, which you might have read in our October issue of Infowars magazine, where we went over all the quotes and the information and had 4 separate articles of many others just on that subject. That's why we say people should give the gift of subscriptions to prisonplanet.tv. You can get 10 memberships for $5.95 a month. We're running that during December. Use 1 membership, 1 username, passcode. 10 people can be logged on simultaneously. Great gift. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Alex Jones, and we are blasting out worldwide here on the syndicated transmission today. We are going to have the head of the UK Independence Party joining us, Nigel Farage. In fact, we have him online with us right now. Then I'll get into the economic news and other top world news stories that we're going to be getting to. And he joins us. Nigel Farage is a UKIP MEP from Southeast England, and he serves on the European Union Parliament. And he exposes the fact that it's the EU bureaucrats themselves that actually have set up a dictatorship, and the Parliament itself has become ceremonial, and he's now one of the leaders worldwide, globally, even more than Ron Paul, when it comes to fighting unelected global corporate governance. And I wanted to get him on to talk about UKIP also under assault and demonization, because it's the fastest growing party, second largest in the European Union, out of England right now as well. The system's really scared of them. But, sir, you've got the floor here. Thank you for coming on with us. Tell us where Europe is right now. You've been predicting its collapse because of its authoritarianism, like the Soviet Union. Now it's openly saying it wants to dissolve whatever sovereignty's left of the member states. Where is the euro right now, sir?
It's a mess. I mean, the currency doesn't work. And again today, we've had another negotiation for yet another set of tens of billions to be sent to the Greeks. Not, of course, that money actually helps the Greek people. It gets recycled through the Greek government straight back to French and German banks. We've got youth unemployment now in southern Europe between 50 and 60% in those southern European countries, and a massive north-south split in the European Union. I mean, basically, the economic logic says the whole thing's a failure, it should break up. But on the other hand, what we have is the political will of the project. And they have an iron grip at the moment over these ancient democracies, I'm afraid. And they are determined to keep the Euro project going. And their new plan is to strip out any remaining sovereignty that existed in those countries and vest it with unelected people based at the centre. It is a recipe for revolution because people simply will not put up with declining living standards being imposed upon them by bureaucrats that they can't vote for and they can't remove.
And you've been in the parliament since 1999 exposing this as a very quiet voice, one of the founders of UKIP. Now, I mean, I see the news reports out of the UK. Your party is exploding. We're going to get to some of the socialist demonization and Marxist demonization of your party that doesn't want 80+% of your laws made by unelected bureaucrats in the Euro. But expanding on this, you just hit the key here, Mr. Farage, joining us from England, folks, that they take the money, give it to Greece, and recycle it back to the technocratic bankers who are now appointing their own people over Italy, over Greece. I mean, you're one of the leading experts and resistors to this. Can you tell Americans and people in North America, but also our listeners in Europe and England, exactly what we're facing with this Euro tyranny and what they plan to do if they're not defeated?
Well, I mean, the fact is that the banking system and politics became hand in glove, one and the same thing. And that's been a complete disaster. And the amazing thing is, I mean, we have had elected prime ministers in Greece and Italy removed by the bully boy bureaucrats and replaced by former Goldman Sachs employees. I mean, you honestly cannot believe what is going on. And their plan is to make this whole thing even worse, is to make elections in countries total irrelevancies, to build for themselves, you know, big new palaces in Brussels, Luxembourg and Strasbourg, and so that they can be the masters. And they think, in their own sort of Walter Mitty way, that somehow they are going to become the world's global superpower. Well, they're living in dreamland because the internal contradictions of the whole thing simply don't work. And while they're doing that, they're not just taking away democratic freedoms, they're also stripping out liberty by putting in place a system where they can monitor the internet, where they can monitor phone calls. I mean, we are heading in Europe for the Orwellian nightmare.
And that isn't just rhetoric. I mean, I see the reports constantly where they're getting rid of free speech in the continent. They're trying to get rid of free speech in the UK. They are demonizing people that are just for mild national sovereignty. For U.S. listeners, I would liken you guys to kind of constitutionalist, Ron Paul-esque. You were a successful businessman and worked in the markets, I know, in your own right. You come from the real world, and then we all watch and post at Infowars.com the amazing debates you have, and when you get up there and excoriate the unelected bureaucrats and they laugh at you or try to censor you, and then everything you talk about comes true. So tell us what's coming next, looking into your very accurate crystal ball.
What's coming next is that despite the problems that Southern Europe has, they lack leadership to get themselves out of the crisis. We will have, within the next 2 years, under a series of proposals that come from the unelected European Commission, but supported by the current German government, a new form of banking union, economic union, fiscal union, political union, and the whole thing completely unaccountable to the electors in any member state. And I honestly believe that those southern European countries, trapped inside a currency that doesn't suit them, desperately in need of getting a devaluation and also getting back their democracy, because, of course, that acts as a safety valve. And I see the European monster getting worse over the next 2 or 3 years, and I see the suffering of people in the Mediterranean reaching a real crisis point. And I think the danger that Southern Europe faces is there could be a spark, and that spark could lead to something akin to violent revolution. And I think, frankly, The whip hand is now so firmly with the bureaucrats. You know, they hold all the cards, that possibly violence is the only way out of this.
Wow, unprecedented. And I know you've spoken about this, but I've read and confirmed it. Eastern Europe being brought in to the euro, many of the communists, not just socialist, operatives and apparatus controllers have now found a second unbelievable life in the bureaucracy and are recreating the Soviet Union.
Oh, very much so. I mean, the European Commission in Brussels is stuffed with people who, before the Berlin Wall came down, prospered under the old communist system. We've had commissioners, 6 commissioners here, who were actually members of the Soviet Communist Party, members of that system that murdered 40 million of its own people, that led those countries to absolute misery and ruin, and they've now reinvented themselves. And frankly, what we've got now in Europe, and certainly governed from Brussels, is an updated form of centralized demand management economy. This is the new communism. Of that I have no doubt. And when I say that in the Parliament, when I say that when I meet them, they look very uncomfortable because they know that I'm right.
What about this new EU symbol I've seen on posters hanging up at government buildings that has hammers and sickles on it?
No, we haven't really reached that stage yet. What they're trying to do is to impose their flag. You know, the flag that the Ryder Cup team had. Sorry to sort of put a sore point on America, but the Ryder Cup team even had that flag, the blue flag with the 12 stars. That's the symbol that really matters to them. And they think that we in Europe are going to swear allegiance to that flag. Well, we're not. We're too different. We're too diverse. We speak different languages. We have different histories and cultures. And the attempt to impose a false nationality upon us is going to lead to ruin.
Sure. Obviously, it's all over the UK papers. UKIP foster couple agony, children taken. Council tells them they're racist because they're part of UKIP. I mean, this is incredible slander, libel, defamation.
It is. What happened is truly astonishing. A couple in their late 50s who have been fostering for the last 7 years and apparently doing it very well, are both members of UKIP, activists in UKIP, and they currently had in their charge 3 young kids from very difficult backgrounds who happen to come from an Eastern European origin. And they were doing well with these kids. You know, by all accounts, they were doing very well with these kids. These kids were learning English. These kids were getting on. And there was the knock at the door. And the knock at the door from the council officials said, "We have been tipped off that you're members of UKIP." It's as if it's sort of Eastern Germany, isn't it? You know, and we believe your party to be racist, and therefore it is inconsistent and wrong for you to have these children. And so these 3 kids were taken away from this couple that were giving them love, affection, helping them to get on to the real world. They've been placed elsewhere. They've been split up, which makes it even worse. And these 2 decent people, just because they support a party that says we should not be part of this European monster, and that whilst we have no prejudice against anybody from anybody in the world, we ought to have a degree of immigration controls about who comes into Britain. These people have been slandered. And it is, I think, just about the most revolting case I can see in modern Britain of an absolutely mad socialist Marxist mindset that has taken over local government in Britain. But there is one piece of good news about it, and that is that the whole country is absolutely revolted by what has happened.
And they won't apologize. Let me talk to you here in the break and see if you can do 5 more minutes to finish this. If not, we'll say bye here in a moment. But thank you. We're going to break. Folks, I've been following this. We've got it all linked up at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Or just type UKIP into a search engine and click news. Hundreds of articles. The town council admits they took the kids because they're members of UKIP, one of the biggest parties. It's basically like the Libertarian Party. It doesn't even get into racial issues. We'll be right back. Follow international politics that affect us here in North America because it's all intertwined by the same bureaucrats, the same mega banks that brag they've conquered Europe and the U.S. I mean, there's headlines where they brag they took us over by fraud, by derivatives. You'll know that Nigel Farage, a member of the European Union Parliament hailing from England, from the UK, is our champion over there. I mean, he's the Ron Paul in Europe. And we're just so honored to have him here with us in this short final segment. And another guest is joining us. And, of course, it was 2 years ago that he survived an incredible plane crash. Went back on May 6, 2010. We'll actually put that news article up on screen for people. Just unbelievable photos of the plane upside down with him and the pilot, and then he actually walked out of it. Just absolutely brutal photos that we'll scroll through there for people. But you've got the floor, sir, and the time we've got left here, finishing up with this family and this new attempt to demonize that you're not putting a good face on it. It has absolutely backfired in every newspaper I've seen.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, everybody, even the left-wing press, are saying this has gone too far, this is disgusting. The trouble is, whilst there is a wall of support for what we've had to say and for this, the council in Yorkshire who did this have announced there'll be an inquiry. Now, on the face of it, that sounds good, but really, this is just kicking the can down the road. I want an apology for these parents. I want those kids to be brought back together and returned. I want these people pardoned, and I want heads to roll. And it just shows you how government works in the Western world now. The woman who made the decision to take those kids away, working for a local council in a small English provincial town, is paid a salary of £130,000 a year. That's $200,000 a year. This woman gets paid to look after kids in Rotherham, and I want her to be sacked. I want her head to roll. And if we don't get the right redress from all of this, then I will, on behalf of this couple, take legal action, because people like this just must not be allowed to be bullied by the state. This case sums up just what goes wrong. We're very, very close now to having a thought police in our country, and I'm going to fight it with all my might.
It's Joyce Thacker, Director of Children's Services for Rotherham Council. And again, this isn't you saying they took the kids because they were constitutional, pro-UK sovereignty, sanity, just mainline, good libertarian folks. But, I mean, if they took these from bad people who, were white supremacists or black supremacists, still you don't take their kids. Now we've gotten to the point where they're proud of it and are saying that this is the way it is. This is the thought police.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it really is. I mean, this is the Orwellian nightmare come true. I think, this case illustrates just how bad, just how rotten things have become. But listen, I'm going to do my best to make sure Joyce Thacker loses that big salary she gets for not looking after kids in Rotherham. And I want this decent couple, really good people who society needs, and I want them pardoned, back on the foster register. And I think also they probably deserve a bit of compensation for what they've been through.
But again, they intend to stick to their guns, saying that one of the biggest parties in the UK is evil. I mean, it's clear that if these people have their way, I mean, I see them all the time calling in the UK for the arrest of people that don't believe in man-made global warming, who don't want to pay Al Gore money.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a huge ideological war, isn't there, that's going on here between those of us that believe in free speech and liberty and the right that we can agree and disagree on things, and this new horrible, bureaucratic, monstrous state that is gone beyond the democratic process. And, in a sense, this case in Rotherham is just a little small example of my bigger battle against the whole European monster. It's about, frankly, I believe, Alex, it is about the battle between good and evil.
It is. In the 1 minute we've got left, how do people get involved who are listening in the UK to UKIP, and people in Europe who want to export these ideas of freedom against the ideas of tyranny?
Absolutely. This battle is as important in every other European country as it is in the United Kingdom. If you look at ukip.org, you'll see what we're doing. It's a good website. It's updated every day. We are the campaign for truth and liberty. We've got the establishment in Westminster absolutely terrified of us. And you know what? We haven't even started yet.
Worldwide, people are waking up to the globalist tyranny, and member of parliament from the UK to the EU, Nigel Farage, amazing videos as he does battle with the globalists. Thank you for the time. I know you're under the weather, and we're glad you survived that plane crash. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Let me tell you, if you don't know who that guy is, you better find out. Just dynamite the way he tears them up. We need more men and women like him worldwide to fight the globalist. He's coming to us first, and I find it flattering and interesting that he's a listener. He's going to be on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast coming up later this afternoon. I talked to Joe, by the way, this morning. Joe's going to be on with us, I think Thursday. He's got his national tour going around the country. Always great to have my friend Joe Rogan on the show. But it's funny, I talked to Joe this morning and then separately talked to John McAfee, and he was telling me that he was going to be on Joe's show. It's just a plug there. I hope they don't come after him. He's been on the phone with a Forbes writer when the police show up with armed men, and he's offering a huge reward to find out who really killed the person in Belize that they're saying he's the main suspect in. And, of course, he's the inventor of one of the most well-known antivirus software, John McAfee. And he worked for Lockheed until '87, then ventured into the antivirus business as one of the first people to understand that was a obvious problem out there with the viruses. And he joins us now. He's been on many TV shows with his different businesses down in Belize for tourists and things. And then he got raided by police in a bizarre event. And then now they're saying down there in the piratical area of former British Honduras, what is Belize, beautiful area, I've been there many times, that he's the murder suspect. Now, most of you probably already know that. John McAfee, from tech pioneer to murder suspect, is one of the headlines. McAfee on the run, murder and mayhem, but few taxes in Belize. That's Forbes. The continuing story of John McAfee is told by John McAfee. So he is speaking out. And McAfee's former girlfriend says the internet pioneer is fighting for his life. And he is on with us today. Sir, thank you for reaching out to us, because I have to tell you, when I saw this break in the last few weeks, I was like, that sounds like pure bull to me, that, what they're saying happened. Plus, the Belizean police, I've only been down there 8 or 9 times, but I've read about it. I mean, they're well known for being pretty darn corrupt, but I've seen them do some shady things in Belize City. But enough of me. You've got the floor. Good to have you here. Start at the beginning. Tell us what really happened, or as best you can tell, and where all this is going, and about the reward that people can find there on your website that I'll also put up on screen.
Well, thank you, Alex. I'm really happy to be here. This breaks my boredom tremendously. I've been living in a very constrained environment for a while, so this is quite a thrill for me. Okay, where did it start? It started the last day of April of this year, when at 6 in the morning I was woken up to the sound of bullhorns, dogs barking, and gunfire, and got out of bed, stark raving naked, went out on my porch and saw 42 armed soldiers with automatic weapons in full riot gear storming my property. When I heard the commotion, I picked up a handgun, which I keep for protection. I put the handgun down on the step, went back inside, put my pants on, woke up my girlfriend. She got up calmly, got dressed, sat on the edge of the bed. I went outside, was grabbed by a bunch of people, slammed up against the wall, and told that they were there with a search warrant for an illegal meth lab, meth meaning methamphetamines. I was handcuffed, held in the sun for 14 hours without food and water. Well, at one point, I did ask for some water and some food for the people who were arrested with me. The soldier standing nearby said, "Do I look like a chef to you?" Indeed, he did not look like a chef, so it was my mistake. In any case, they hauled me off to the Belize City Jail. I spent 6 hours sleeping on a concrete floor and was finally released with no charges being filed. The following day, I asked for publicly an apology from the Prime Minister, who privately responded, "Who does he think he is?" to his close confidants. That was the beginning of my story. Since that time, I've had nothing but harassment from the authorities here. They've attempted to charge me with a variety of charges. The very first was running an antibiotics laboratory without a license. That didn't go very far, because what I was working on was actually a topical antiseptic, not an antibiotic, which we take systemically.
And by the way, before this interview, I did some more research on you. They've had national TV shows here in the U.S. about the little laboratory you've got that's discovering things in the rainforest and patenting plant derivatives and things. So you're an entrepreneur down there, well-respected, because I did a lot of research before we did this interview, and it really does look like they're targeting you. Why do you think they began to come after you?
I have not played by the rules. The rules in Belize are if you're a rich foreigner, you have to pay your dues, and you pay them to the higher-ups in the government, the high officials. I've donated about $7 million worth of gear to every aspect of the Belizean economy, the Belizean police force, to schools, to charity organizations, you name it. But my donations, rather than giving the money to the government and letting them dole it out, where 90% of it goes to the families of the officials, I donate directly. For example, I bought boots for the entire Orange Walk Police Department. I got their sizes first, bought them, and requested an inventory of who they went to. Now, there's no way for the government to skim anything from that. I built a police station for the village of Carmelita, a very nice police station.
So there you go. I mean, you're a successful...
They did not like that because I should have given the government the money and let the government build the police station. So I'm not playing by the rules. I refuse to donate to either political party. The current party sent, just prior to the last election, just a few months before I was raided, by the way, an envoy demanding a large sum of money in exchange for which I would be treated very nicely. I ordered them off of my property. That was a serious mistake, foolishness. You can attribute it to my advancing age. But that was the beginning of my trouble.
Amazing. So you're a well-known inventor, well-known businessman, started all sorts of tourist businesses, tours, you name it, all over the islands, and you were not being shaken down, kind of like our founding fathers didn't want it to be shaken down, and so they've started trying to set you up, and now there was a murder, and it's convenient, and they want to basically send you down the river. I mean, is that a fair assumption of what your side of the story is?
I would say it's exactly my side of the story, and basically they're opportunists. Somebody's murdered right next door to me. Well, not right next door, so, a few hundred yards down the beach. Perfect. Let's grab the bastard.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, most people know the story. It's been one of the biggest stories the last few weeks. And here you are. You've been communicating via text and things. Now you're on the air. Obviously, national media is going to be tuning into this. A, what do you want to say to the national media? B, what do you want to say to the Belizean authorities? If you can call the CD operators that. What would you like to say to them as well? And then where do you want to see all this go?
Okay, well, first of all, what I'd like to say to the national media is, number one, I'd like to make an apology to Jeff Wise, the intrepid reporter who has been bulldogging my ass for 2.5 years now for unknown reasons. In an effort to understand his animosity, I confused him with yet another reporter that reported on my flying activities in New Mexico. During that time, I did probably 20 magazine interviews. I publicly stated that Jeff had acted improperly to one of the women. Unfortunately, when I was going to actually post the picture, when I got the picture, it was a different reporter.
Okay, so you're correcting that. That's good.
It was horrifying. Go ahead, sir.
No, so you're correcting that now.
I'm correcting that now. My apology. To the rest of the media, I would say get a life. Let's do some real reporting. Everything in the national media is basically regurgitating what somebody else has said. So we're not getting the news third hand. We're getting it 50th hand. So get a life, get a job, a real job. To the Belizean authorities, please take a look in the mirror. As to where this is heading, sir, I have no clue. I'm flying this by the seat of my pants and taking this a moment at a time.
Now, what's the best website for people to visit to find your side of the story in text and also find out about the reward?
The best website is whoismcafee.com. It's my blog. Also, we have an official Twitter site. It's just called Official McAfee. I very strongly would advise people to go to my blog site, whoismcafee.com, to get my side of the events. And also, 3 of my best friends have also been arrested on my behalf, unfortunately. This is the way on my website are all the email addresses that you can write to please demand their release. They have nothing whatsoever to do with anything.
Well, again, sir, I want to believe you. You sound legitimate to me. I already knew who you were. I did some research. I also, again, have been to Belize many times since I was a child, and my father's been down there even more to scuba dive with my mother, and he researched the area and talked to friends that lived down there over the years who left, saying that even if you don't have a lot of money, now, the government tries to shake you down. The people overall are pretty good folks, but it is a famous, kind of pirate cove, archipelago of islands down there. And so that's why I tend to lean towards believing what you're saying, knowing what I know about the so-called Belizean government that might as well have the Jolly Roger as their official symbol. But any other points you'd like to make on that front? And, I mean, obviously you don't want to get into how you're evading specifically, but first tell us about the reward.
Okay, I've offered a $25,000 Belize reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the real killer of Mr. Falk. That's obviously in my interest. I'm not doing it out of altruism. I don't quite believe in altruism, but I'm a man of my word. If someone provides information which does get the real killer, you will get the money. That's your first question about the Jolly Roger. Keep in mind, Belize was founded as a pirate colony.
That's why I said that, yeah.
And for 200 years, it had no flag other than the Jolly Roger. The British, when they took it over, didn't really take it over as a country. They were actually helping the pirates because the pirates attacked the Spanish galleons coming from South America that had to go right by the reef outside. And so Belize was a benefit to the British and continued to be a benefit up until the 1950s. And that's when England abandoned it. As with many colonies that England has abandoned, self-governance is not as easy as it first appears.
No kidding. Continuing here, I could ask so many questions, and I will, but what else do you, I mean, obviously you're now just not writing on your blog. You've reached out to Infowars.com to speak to folks. Why did you reach out to us?
I'll be really frank with you, sir. My advisor suggested it. This is the very first time I've had contact with your show, not because of disinterest, but because the bandwidth here in this country does not support podcasts.
No, I understand. Okay, I just knew that you'd reached out to us. I mean,
I'm surprised you have not asked about drug use. The famous blue light hoax that occurred earlier in the year, the intimidations that I am on a substance called MDPV. You've asked some very soft questions so far, sir. I would suggest moving to hardball.
Okay, well, no, I mean, it's not that. It's just that we've seen all the demonization in the media, and so I always go with the little guy, because it's better that 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man go to jail. So I kind of take the defense attorney position in life because I grew up seeing the system posing as good guys, generally being the bad guys. Now maybe my life experiences skewed me towards always being for the underdog. I just wanted to, since you contacted us, I wanted to give you a chance to basically lay out all your points before we got into any hardball questions, as you call them.
All right. I think my points have been laid out, and I have appreciated that opportunity, sir. So,
well, okay, let's get into this standard. Let's get into standard media questions then. Where are you right now? How are you hiding now? How dare you kill that man? I mean, if you want those type of questions, you know you did it, McAfee. Just turn yourself in; it'll go easier on you. Come out with your hands up. Sure. No, seriously. How are you evading these guys so successfully?
Okay, number one, I did not kill Mr. Falls. That's the most absurd allegation of my entire life. Number two, I really cannot say anything about where I am, how I've evaded detection, what I look like, or anything else. I apologize for being evasive, but by saying something on a show of your size, I know for a fact the Belizean authorities are listening as we speak. So please forgive me for my
and listen, I was playing devil's advocate. I mean, obviously you are a innocent man until proven guilty, and I don't think you would do this. I don't think you'd go down the beach and kill somebody, when you have so much to lose. And I don't trust the Belizean authorities. But obviously people are wondering, well, you told me off air, you just said somebody of, quote, your age who's been around certainly knows how to hide out. And I guess your point is, that you're streetwise.
I am streetwise. The first half of my life was spent sort of on the streets. So I've 33 or 4 years ago, my life changed radically, hopefully for the better. When I stopped using drugs, I stopped drinking alcohol. I have not had a sip of wine, beer, or anything else in over 30 years, neither have I taken drugs in that period of time. I will be honest, I have started smoking cigarettes again, which some people call a drug, and I will fess up to that.
Why do you think they're claiming in the media?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
And I also drink coffee, which contains caffeine, which if you have 4 or 5 espressos is a pretty speedy hit. But beyond that, that's the extent of my drug use.
What would you like to see, best case scenario, them start a real investigation instead of just saying you did it?
Well, I would love a real investigation. However, it's not in the government's interest. If the real murderer is found, then suddenly this whole opportunity to remove McAfee as a major thorn in the government side simply disappears.
Now, again, you've had national media in your lab. I've seen the newscast. You're very proud of what you developed. You've told the press that you believe it's when you came up with this tropical antiseptic that they wanted, or a topical antiseptic that they came after you.
Well, at that point, obviously, had I continued and been successful, it would have been, a multi-billion-dollar company, and the government would want their dues. However, it became also clear that I am not a game player, not by the game that's played here, and that just pissed everybody off. It's just not the way the system works. The government allows you to do something, and in exchange, you have to pay up. I don't mind doing that if you want to do it in the form of taxes and tax everyone. I don't care how unjustly or how skewed it may be. But for someone to come and say, here, give me $5 million, that doesn't cut it. My answer is get the fuck off my property. Excuse my language, sir.
No, and I've been reading news articles where they do talk about claiming that you were on a forum bragging that you developed some new drug that you were on. I mean, anybody could go to a forum and say that in fact, they do stuff like that, that I'm developing a drug. In fact, I've had them say that about me. I had to sue somebody one time, saying, just making it up. I mean, I've never been involved in any drugs, period. I mean, I've been Mr. Straight my whole life, other than stealing beer out of golf carts a few times on the golf course growing up. When we come back, I want to ask you about those allegations, though, straight ahead, and any other points you want to make. And who knows, he's on with us. He can stay on with us a little bit longer before he goes on Joe Rogan's show after our show ends. Perhaps we should open the phones up for John McAfee. I'm Alex Jones. Our website's Infowars.com. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, John McAfee, sex, drugs, and antivirus software. And there he is, looking like the older brother of Rob Zombie, with his 12-gauge shotgun and a smile on his face. It looks like, for a guy your age, you're in pretty good shape, buddy. Looks like you were having a little too much fun down there, but you say you didn't kill this guy. You know nothing about it. How were you able to get the heads up and get away from them before they came and threw you in their Belizean jail?
I saw the police coming up the beach. They're remarkably inept when it comes to hiding themselves.
Well, sure. And instead, and you'd already been harassed by him quite a bit, so I guess you knew to get out of there.
I did.
Okay, specifically, we were talking during the break. Why are you reaching out to Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, and why are you going with alternative media?
Okay, I'm reaching out to both you and Joe because my advisors suggested it. To be really frank, I'd never heard your show before, nor Joe Rogan's. Again, not because of disinterest, but because we... No,
but that's a good place to go because we're at least real people.
So that's why I'm on there. But the internet, because if you look at traditional news, traditional media, it's nothing more than regurgitation of what's been said. Whereas on the internet, you are more real-time. You have access to more facilities, and it tends to be a little truer story.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because I don't have somebody pulling my strings. And I can tell you, big network people, they've got people pulling their strings. They're reading off teleprompters. So at least here we're having a real discussion, person to person, man to man. Now, expanding, I guess I'll put my foot in my mouth because, I wouldn't make these statements. You say you don't use drugs, so why are you on a drug forum making these comments? I made the leap, but then I see how ridiculous the comments are. It makes sense. You were being sarcastic. Tell folks about the MP, the MDPV. You were making jokes about bath salts.
Right. I wasn't actually making jokes. I was trying to sound as serious as possible. To tell the story, about 10 years ago, a drug showed up in Europe called MDPV-10. Now, MDPV stands for methylene dioxypyrovalerone. The drug was the magical sex drug. It's what the world's been looking for as the ultimate marital aid. It was obviously a made-up story, but millions of people believed it. They kept talking about it. They were still talking about it on Blue Light, which is the world's largest drug forum board. On a bet from a friend, I went online and created a thread that went on for more than 1,000 posts. Now, it was so absurdly false. Now, think about it. If I had rediscovered MDPV-10, I wouldn't be going to manufacture it. I would take a sample of the formula, walk into the Bayer offices, and the president of the company on his knees would hand me a check for $1 billion while he was muttering, "The world is ours." I mean, it's absurd, totally absurd. And
well, that may be why you got raided, because the idiot Belizean authorities knew you were running a laboratory. You've been on the news about it. They probably thought you had it and were going to torture you to get it.
Well, thank God they didn't torture me. I got out of jail in time and took refuge on the island. But it was so obviously a prank, so obviously, because that board does have legitimate chemists on it. All couple of hundred of them who were reading it, they all said, "This is a hoax. People don't believe this crap." And so they left. But the rank and file, they just kept the thing going. I mean, anybody who reads it will know, obviously.
No, my gut tells me that you screwed around about this.
I had all kinds of things, but my God, had I developed that, had I rediscovered the formula, trust me, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Sure, my gut tells me.
I would be a Bayer executive, not having to work.
John McAfee's our guest, the software developer, famous, and now even more famous, being a murder suspect in Belize. We're back in 60 seconds. Let's talk about it. But my gut tells me your little joke, got you in this trouble. Do I 100% believe John McAfee did not commit this murder that he's alleged to have committed by the Belizean police? No. But do I put any stock in the Belizean government? The answer is absolutely not. And my gut tells me that he's a very eccentric person, but there is something else afoot here. Now, I could be wrong, but I am certainly more than happy to let this gentleman be heard, and we're glad that he chose this broadcast to do it first, other than text that he's been having with the media. And, I should, in the time we've got left, Twitter. Go to twitter.com/RealAlexJones. And I can pull this up during the break. Tweet me, and then, guys, print them off for me, because I'll be busy trying to go through them, then I won't get to it. Tweet right now to Real Alex Jones, or I guess we should tweet out questions for John McAfee to Real Alex Jones if you've got a few questions for him. But repeat to me, sir, what you just said in that 1-minute break as we ended the last hour. I said, who do you think killed Gregory Fall, the guy that was down the beach from you? And you had a very interesting answer. Please repeat that.
Okay. The first thing that came to my mind, and this perhaps bolsters those who say I am paranoid, my first thought was that the government had sent someone to kill me, pretending it would be a robbery, and they simply got the wrong white man and got a neighbor instead. That thought didn't stay for long. But quite frankly, sir, I have no idea who killed Mr. Fall.
I mean, why would you kill Mr. Fall when you've got all these beautiful boats and businesses and all this money? I mean, you sold, your antivirus company for $100 million. I mean, why on earth, you're down there, you look happy in these photos. Why on earth would you go down the beach and blow your neighbor away?
That's the entire point. Plus, I barely knew my neighbor. Now, to be frank, he was not my favorite character. He drank a lot. He did not like my dogs. They barked a lot at night, and it annoyed him. And to be frank, they annoyed me too, and I fully sympathized with him.
Yeah, my dogs annoy me too.
My dogs were poisoned, by the way, the night before, and I had to put 4 of them down. But Mr. Fall also had dogs. Dog lovers do not kill dogs. This is a fact of life. If you have a dog, you know this is a fact, sir.
No, I agree.
It could not have been Mr. Fall who killed my dogs, and that is what the government is saying. That because he poisoned my dogs, I then shot him. I can't think of anything more absurd.
So you are innocent. Tell people. I mean, state it. People want to hear it in your words.
Well, I am innocent. I'm absolutely innocent. It is not something that I would ever do to anyone under any circumstances. I mean, if I really were that pissed at someone, I would want them alive so that I could continue to torment them in other ways. I mean, it's totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, if somebody poisoned my dogs, I would find them, and I'd say, okay, get ready for a fist fight. I'd say, put your fist up, punk. And I would probably, you know, get in a fight with them. I certainly wouldn't kill somebody. Actually, my Chihuahua's 15 years old, and I love it, but I might give them a check if they killed it. I'm joking. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know that you are joking, sir.
No, I'm being sure. Well, sometimes I tell you, that dog's barking at 3 a.m. I love the dog, though. It's like an heirloom. It was a year old when I met my wife, and now it's 15 years old and blind and stumbles around all over the house urinating on the rugs. But anyway, side issue, sir. We've got a final segment coming up. What do you want to cover when we come back?
Anything you want. I understand that you just Twittered for questions. I can assure you some of those were going to be very intense. Can you please the ones that would paint me in the worst light, sir?
Yes. Why did you want me to be more aggressive earlier against you? I mean, is that... You know, that you're...
Only because I didn't want it to come off. I don't want the program to come off sounding like, you know, that this is a one-sided program. I think programs that present two sides are always better.
No, I agree with you, but here's the deal. There's a guy who had 2 teens break in his house in Minnesota. He shot one. They started laughing, which I believe. That's how trendies are. They think if they laugh, something isn't real. So he shot him again. They're charging him with murder. They're going to use that to take my right to shoot people that come in my house because the guy said, yeah, I probably shouldn't have shot him that many times. If you're innocent, bro, you don't need to show both sides and show you're reasonable. The system's going to use that against you. You should just stick to the facts.
Yes, sir.
Got one segment left here on this Tuesday show with John McAfee, the tech pioneer. To murder suspect. Terra.com has a bunch of hard statements, claims they make about him, so he wants hard questions. I'll throw them at him. You want it, you got it. I was planning a few of those, but I wanted to let him have his say first. But here are some of the questions we've got coming in at Real Alex Jones on Twitter. Is the antivirus business legit, or are the same companies creating viruses to push their products? As we've always heard, or is that a urban legend, or is it a mix of both? I mean, I know our government created Stuxnet, launched it on Iran, and then said they wanted cybersecurity takeover in the name of fighting Stuxnet, which they admittedly created with Israel. So what's your breakdown on that? Because you're the big granddaddy of antivirus, Mr. McAfee.
Okay, I'd first like to say that I've had absolutely nothing to do with the antivirus business for 20 years, but the idea that antivirus companies would create viruses is utterly absurd because there are hundreds of thousands of people out there doing it as we speak. Why would you waste money? Why would you waste the effort? You know, if I were running an antivirus company and I had the choice of hiring a programmer to fight the viruses to make my product better or hiring one to create a virus, only a madman would do the first.
Because there's so many new viruses, what you want to do is create something to counter them, but also go out and hype how deadly the virus is.
Absolutely. Now, you might market how deadly they are, and maybe you might exaggerate that, I don't know. But even then, there's no need. But certainly creating them would be counterproductive, and such a company, I don't think, would last long in this business. Yeah,
it would be very, very reckless. I think that's more of a government purview or against other... Sure. Against other governments. Great question. More questions coming up. Okay, you want tough questions? Here it is. McAfee retires to Belize, setting up Ambergris Key. I've stayed on Ambergris Key, a tiny island 36 miles off the coast. He builds a fence compound and staffs it with armed guards. Yeah, when I used to fly in, it was a dirt runway. February 2010, Quorum EX, a new venture by McAfee, headquartered in Belize, launches its purpose to develop commercial antibiotics. In 2012, one of his properties is raided by Belize Police Force Gang Suppression Unit as he is arrested but not charged on suspicion of making crystal meth and possessing unlicensed firearms. In the raid, he is reportedly pulled out of bed with a 17-year-old girlfriend. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes, sir.
So you probably wouldn't be in trouble if you were a congressman chasing a 14-year-old page, though, male page.
Or even a female page at 14. The age of consent in Belize is 16. I did not say I was a perfect man. Everybody has their likes and dislikes. I like women. Some men like bowling, golf. It's my choice. Perhaps it's an unwise choice to be hanging out with a 17-year-old girl when I could be, especially in this country, her great-grandfather. But that does not make me a murderer.
No, I don't think it does. Okay, continuing here with these points. Hey, you interrogate yourself. You want tough questions. What are some tough questions I should be asking?
good Lord.
Are you the Easter Bunny?
Much made of the fact that I was living with multiple women. Again, I would give the same answer. We all have our likes and dislikes. I'm not sure. Did you get no Twitter responses, sir?
No, I've got a ton of them coming in, but we just tweeted it during the break, and
sorry.
And my problem is I can't really walk and chew gum, so I could go to my tweet. They're actually bringing me a whole stack of questions here right now. Here, I'll ask you the questions. Ask him if he is concerned his guns will never be given back, and if he will be an excuse for the government needs to outlaw them. Well, I mean, they've already pretty much restricted them in Belize, right? So there's a question about guns.
Yeah, the question comes, all of my guns were licensed. Why did they have so many? When I moved to the mainland, to the interior on the river, I was the only white man living in an entire district of 30,000 people. And I was apparently wealthy. I had cars, I had big houses. It's an extremely poor district. It was unwise for me to display my wealth, perhaps. But we had many robbery attempts, and it just occurred to me that there's no way to protect myself and my property without security. Hence the guns. As to will they be given back, for 7 months I've been attempting to get them back. Through lawyers, the embassy tried once. The government refuses, saying, we have not concluded our investigation.
Well, I mean, you can never have enough guns. So, I mean, they're a great investment, and it's like a dragon's hoard. They say the more gold a dragon has, the more psychic they are, the more guns you have, just the better you sleep at night. I mean, don't you? It's fun to, like, sleep on giant crates full of 50 calibers. Don't you agree?
Well, I'm not sure about that, sir, but I think under some circumstances, guns are, in fact, necessary.
Yeah, well, I like to personally... It's just, you sleep better on just a huge mountain of crates of firearms and ammunition.
I'm not sure. I've never tried it, but perhaps you're right.
No, I'm serious. There's something magic about it. Okay, I'm being a little sarcastic. Not really.
All right.
It's actually kind of ridiculous. I don't need to get near gun shops is the point. I'm not really a big shopper unless I enter a gun shop. And, well, you ever seen Rodney Dangerfield in... what's the movie Caddyshack? When he goes, I'll take one of those, 2 of those, and 3 of those. Oh, look at this hat. Looks good on you. Okay, what is his take on Steve Jobs' death? You want questions? Here they are.
I'm not sure what the relevance is, but I thought that Steve Jobs was certainly one of the premier entrepreneurs of America. He was one of the few that had heart and sense. His passing was tragic.
Okay, here's another one.
For those who are interested, I would recommend strongly his commencement address to Stanford, probably one of the finest commencement addresses I have ever heard, and very moving. I actually cried at the end.
Wow. Interesting. Here's a serious question. Why don't you give yourself to the authorities for due process?
Because the due process of throwing me in a cell, hanging me with my own belt, and then telling the world that Mr. McAfee, in shame, hung himself, is not exactly what I would like to do this day.
Yeah, I had the Rockwall cops tell me they were going to kill me in a jail cell. They didn't stop talking about their drug dealing, so I believe you. How do you feel about the outcome of the election here in the U.S.?
Well, I had predicted it well in advance. You know, since I don't live there anymore, it doesn't affect me very much, but I have no problems with Mr. Obama. To be frank, sir, I try to divorce myself from political affiliations. I think that in the end, no matter which party wins, nothing changes.
I got a bunch of other, I'm just reading all these questions, trying to think of which one to read, because a bunch of them are profane. It says, if you went camping when you woke up and your bleep was greasy, would you tell anyone? See, that's the problem. And there's a whole bunch more of these coming in. They're printing them off to bring them into me. Well, you know, when this interview ends...
Sounds like the comments I get on my blog that I have to unfortunately filter through.
Exactly, but let's expand on this. After you leave us in 5 minutes, you'll undoubtedly wish you would have said something. Let's say that now. What do you most importantly want to transmit to the Belizean authorities in their little greasy, tight-fitting police uniforms? I mean, I've seen the Belizean police. They look like something directly out of central casting of third world seedy people, but I'm not trying to be mean, but it is a fact. What would you like to say to them? I'm sure. But you know what? Maybe just because they're bad, I'm thinking you're good. I mean, how do we know?
No, and I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't even say they're bad, sir. I think by and large, the Belizean police are decent people. They get paid the equivalent of less than $1 an hour. and they're expected to do work that puts their life in danger. It isn't the police itself. It's the bureaucracy that supports them and controls them. It's the higher-ups that use the police for their own interests, to usher their drug deals and protect their own interests rather than protect the public. So
you don't think there's any narcotics?
Don't think that I am bashing the Belizean police as a people. I'm bashing the higher-ups in the government for their outrageous selfishness and greed.
Are you related to Rob Zombie?
Am I what?
Rob Zombie, the rock and roll star. You look a lot like him, or he looks like you. You're not really his...
I don't think I'm related, but then, much in my family background I don't know about, so who knows?
You're not really his father, are you?
God, I hope not.
I'm just joking. I'm going to stop right now. Well, listen, it's really interesting talking to you. What do you know about the New World Order, the global government, the NSA spying on people, the cancer viruses and the vaccines? Ever heard about that?
Of course. Well, there is a New World Order. We all know that, but I think that I would point my finger first at the global press, not yourself, sir. I'm talking about the classical press that is interested in making money and making it as quickly as possible and making it through sensationalism and perversion of the facts. I think that we first get our ideas from what we see on television and what we read in the press. Do you think that we could have convinced the world that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq if we had not first had the press convince us?
No, that's right. They prepare the mind for it. Here's another question. Have you ever tried bath salts or any Schedule I drugs?
Absolutely not.
Well,
they didn't have those when I was doing drugs some 30-odd years ago. I'm sure I would have at the time, but no, I did not have the opportunity.
Well, you don't look like you're doing drugs. You look like you're doing the Caribbean sun and, living at the beach. From the photos I've seen, the recent photos from Wired Magazine, you name it, you look like you found the fountain of youth, buddy.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. At my age, you have no idea how good that sounds.
How old are you exactly?
67.
67 years old. And if you're doing methamphetamine, I'm a monkey's uncle.
I appreciate that, sir. I would be a monkey's uncle, too.
All right, we only got a minute left. You've got our number. You've got our contact. You got my producer's number. If you're in the middle of something and they're coming after you, we can call you and we can record it right here so we can get it on the air at the latest, even late at night, as soon as possible. So you've got our contact info. And you can also call my producer's phone. It's got a recording app on it so that we can catch anything. And I'll talk to you during the break, okay? Anything else you'd like to add?
That's it. And believe me, sir, when I do see the police closing in, I will pick up my phone and I will call this number and I will start talking and will not stop until they forcibly wrest the phone from my fist.
Well, we've also got some backup numbers that will actually automatically record. Let's get him that number. Get the IT guys. I forget the number. John, we'll give you that. And again, I hope you're innocent. I hope you're telling the truth. Certainly got to side with an American against the Belizean police when their story doesn't add up. And there is a history of them persecuting you and having to release you. So I don't know. I think you're telling the truth, but I may be wrong. I'm not often wrong about things like this. John McAfee, they say he's the devil. I say he deserves to be heard. You just heard him. Federal government, I'm going to cover this coming up in the next segment, says 22s are terrorists. Got to turn those in. Everything's a terrorist action. Founding fathers are terrorists. Freedom's terrorism. Everything's terrorism. We should just believe the government no matter what they say. Well, not me. By the way, you hear that song, Call Me? We're going to open the phones up on any issue you wish to discuss here today. I'm a little bit better mood today. Had a family medical emergency over the weekend that's got me in a very, very bad mood still, to a certain extent. I'm not complaining or telling you my business for no reason. That's just why I've been a little bit irritable, a little bit darker than normal on air. But I am moving forward in a better mood right now. But the toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. And we just had John McAfee on who said he's going to call us. He said he can't keep this up forever. I think he said that on air, too, but off air he said he can't keep hiding out from him forever. In fact, I should have asked him about that, about any close calls he's had. I asked him about it off air. He said he has, and I always think of the best questions after somebody's gone. But there is that interview, and that will certainly be a news maker right there, which is not our only goal. You know, just making the news on some petty issue really has no thrill. I've been thinking about this, and I hope this infects you as well. That's why I'm telling you the story. I really like promoting freedom. I really like getting the word out about the Second Amendment. I like getting the word out about the Constitution. I like defending private property. I like defending the family. And I like kicking corrupt, leech-like bureaucrats out of government. I mean, that's why I do this. That's why I'm on the air. And that's why I don't get a thrill going on some national television show to talk about some issue that doesn't matter. In fact, I refuse to do it all the time. I've been invited on entertainment shows and stuff and said no, because it has no thrill. But it is thrilling to have prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com and to be able to reach millions of people every day. It is thrilling to be up at the top of drudgereport.com right now, which is the biggest news website in the world and can really set the agenda, and the establishment does not like that. That is a big thrill. It is thrilling to be able to be on air and expose the TSA and catch them in a long train of lies. It is thrilling to engage these people. Now, let me hit a little bit of news now. When we come back from break, I'll go to your calls and then more news. Investigation, this is out of WSB-TV. Investigation shows TSA pat-down incident, not first complaint against those very screeners, pulling the Texas state legislature's members' nieces' dress completely off of her, the 17-year-old. And it turns out that that's happened to a lot of women. Yeah, they also have guys sometimes who could never get a woman, but they see a real, well, they settled a case 2 years ago in Texas. Was it Amarillo, where it was a very reportedly bombshell woman. She was never on the news. They described her as a very attractive blonde with large bosoms, or bosom. And they pulled her shirt off and then began grabbing her breast, and then she began crying, and the three men stood around her, and one of them asked her for a date and said, "Sorry, we have to do this. By the way, you're really good looking. Can I have a date?" And I think I conflate two cases in Texas, but in one of them, they had to settle the case and admitted to it. And you're like, but that doesn't sound normal. I mean, when I was a single guy, I wouldn't walk up to, you know, some woman and try to dominate them. I would go up and be charming to them and say, by the way, I just think you're a knockout. You know, you want to go out and get dinner and we'll see a movie? And so many times, you know, I was successful. But I mean, I cannot just imagine trying to force yourself on people. But those of us that are normal, we have to understand, Janet Napolitano had to settle the cases with her, reportedly with her and her deputies, sexually harassing men at the level, and it wasn't about men, it was about dominating men. And putting their stuff in the bathroom and telling them perform sex acts. And you know what? They settled those cases. And you read those lawsuits, and it's like, I can't even say the stuff they reportedly did, which they settled over. But when you know how those type of people operate, that's, I mean, look at them. Who wants, have you seen the women that run the Justice Department? I mean, obviously, they're angry about life, and they've never had a good sexual relationship, and so they don't understand it's all about love. It's all about consent. They don't understand that's the fun part, is the cold consent part. They want to go dominate, and that's what's going on. So I got a big stack of them abusing people. Who do you think wants a job grabbing people all day? Perverts, sickos, rapists, scum, filth, trash. We are back. We're going to go to your phone calls here in about 60 seconds. I've done 2.5 hours of radio and haven't plugged a stinking thing. And not only does it finance what we do here, the plugs, it also gets the word out. And you can get 12 issues of InfoWars magazine delivered to your door, shipping included, for $59.95. And half of that's the shipping. That is at cost. So this is an outreach we're doing for yourself to read it and then give it to friends and family or folks at work, or to give a gift subscription to your local library, your police department, your state house, your county commissioners, members of the U.S. Senate, whatever. 12 big color magazines, now up over 60 pages, full of incredible graphics, crossword puzzles, political illustrations. I'm really proud of the publication covering cutting-edge issues each month. And we've got Ron Paul's full going away speech coming up in the December issue that we're going to put on sale in about 3 days. And whenever there's back issues, when supplies last, we put a couple back issues in your first subscription. Sometimes you get more than 12. But the point is that's all available at InfoWarsStore.com, or you can call 888-253-3139. And you can give a subscription to your friends and family, and you're done. You can give PrisonPlanet.tv subscriptions as well. You get InfoWars Nightly News, you get all my films, my book, Paul Watson's book, dozens of other films, the daily 3-hour radio show, the nightly news, 7 o'clock every night, the archives of it. And PrisonPlanet.tv has been around 9.5 years. Well, now more than 9.5 years. It'll be 10 years in April. But the point is, it's got 17 years of material on there. It's got a lot of my original stuff on there. And before, it had a few glitches and things over the years. Now, it's first rate. I mean, it is incredible bandwidth, incredible. It takes a minute to sign up. And we need to get banners up explaining this. You get a membership for $5.95 a month. You can get a yearly and get it even less. But sign up for a month, you get 10 memberships. That's 59 cents a month. Because we calculated it, that's right at, if people actually use it, we'll lose money. But I'm figuring some people will use it if you give out, 10 username passcodes. You create a username and passcode. We're going to put a thing up there explaining this to people that obviously isn't your other username and passcodes for other stuff. Just create simple name and simple passcode and then send it as an e-gift. We're even going to create little e-cards on there that you can also sample, click off the site, and say, here is your username passcode. This is a site with films and video of the daily radio show and the nightly show. And you just put the username passcode in and bam, it's all there. Films, books. I mean, it's really massive now. PrisonPlanet.tv. And the site is a huge success, and it's financing so much of what we do. But I'm thinking, you know what? Why not just make it 10 memberships? Now that we can handle the bandwidth, now that we found cheaper sources of quality bandwidth, we got the stuff up there uploaded in HD now. I mean, it's all there, PrisonPlanet.tv. And it's our answer to the YouTube censorship and all the rest of it. So PrisonPlanet.tv or InfoWarsNews.com, that will also take you there. If you think it scares your family to say, here's your PrisonPlanet.tv membership, we're kind of segueing towards calling it InfoWars News. And so that's InfoWarsNews.com. And you can send it to them and get folks to tune in and say, hey, 7 o'clock tonight, watch this nightly news show. And it's world-class guest. And we just had the British Ron Paul on, and we had Lord Monckton on before that, Nigel Farage. We had John McAfee, whose first interview I know of, other than text interviews, boom, our show. Because his advisors told him, come on here. So, hey, he's on the show. And I checked his voice, checked the numbers, checked with some people. That's him. That's definitely the guy. And it's just exciting. Joe Rogan will be on Thursday. And you're just going to hear teleprompter free. Because even mainline radio, a lot of that is, guys are following talking points. They repeat the same stuff over and over again. That is not going to beat the globalist. I mean, I'll just tell you right now, I would love other people to understand what I understand. It isn't that hard to understand. If you know history, you get all this info. I'm going to go to your calls. Just lastly, doing 3 hours of plugging here just towards the end of this broadcast or the end of this hour. We did it for a couple of weeks, and they got very close to selling out because we're the biggest distributor of ProPure. They got a huge, giant, completed shipment from their factories. And it's done. And they've got a large, Ventura's on tomorrow, they're reminding me. He pops in every Wednesday with us. I forgot to call him last Wednesday for the update on the nightly news for the Wednesday premiere of the show. Side issue. The point is they were holding a sign up reminding me of that. Thanks, guys. What was I saying? I was talking about what? ProPure. Yes, thank you. And the issue here is ProPure is the best gravity-fed filter out there, bar none. And it blows away the competition. We have side-by-side comparisons at InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsShop.com. We'll get you there. And normally we sell it for the lowest price. We're the biggest distributor in the world. Well, we're giving 15% off again because they've got a massive group of these from their factory. They estimate at the numbers that they're selling right now that they can hold through the middle of December. Well, I'm just saying until December 10th, if you order, then you'll be guaranteed to get it before Christmas. It's a great gift to give as well. Their travel one's only $185, and you get the 15% discount on that. I mean, that blows away the competition, and it's a much better filter. You can see the side-by-side comparisons. So, Pro Pure water filters discounted like nowhere else, 15% off with promo code at checkout, WATER15, 15. Just water and then 15, and you get 15% off. The already lowest prices out there on ProPure, available at InfoWarsStore.com, or call 888-253-3139. And if you've got family, you got grandkids, whatever the case is, these are so easy. They cut almost everything out or reduce it down to non-detectable levels, because you technically, even with an electron microscope, you still can't say, well, with the fluoride filters, this cuts everything out, because fluoride's so small, some of it will probably still get through, even with the fluoride filters, but it reduces it down to almost nothing. You can put swamp water in these and then drink them. The point is, ProPure, it's what I use, it's what my family uses, it's what I've got on my RV, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. Enough from me. John in Wyoming, you're on the air.
Yeah, Alex, I've got two quick things to bring out. I just got, a couple of weeks ago, my latest copy of the 2012 annual report for the CFR. And not only is General David Petraeus and General John R. Allen a member of the CFR, so is Paula D. Broadwell.
No, wait a minute. Petraeus is a CFR fellow. He went to a college course they give and to kneel to Sauron. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, they have all three of them listed as members of the CFR. And another thing I've got, you like to have some interesting bumper music when you're going into and out of a broadcast. I've got two suggestions. One is from that wonderful 1979 Al Pacino movie, Injustice for All. At the very end, when they're rolling the closing credits, there's a song called There's Something Funny Going On. And listen to that song in its entirety. It is dynamite.
No, I agree, but I interrupted you. Go back to this lady you're talking about in the Council on Foreign Relations.
Yeah, Paula D. Broadwell. She is one of the members. She was the one involved in that three-way operation, you might say, with Petraeus and with General Allen. And
how obvious is it with those women? I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the whole point is, how did they meet? That's one thing that the mainstream media isn't talking about, is how they met.
Well, you've also got the twins visiting the White House quite a bit.
And Chelsea Clinton, who just signed on as a roving reporter earlier this year for NBC Nightly News, has just signed on for a 5-year membership with the CFR.
To learn how to be a good, aging, globalist fossil. What a traitorous group openly against this country.
Oh, yeah. Now, anyway, go to Al Pacino's movie, Injustice for All, and get a hold of the theme song that they roll at the closing credits called There's Something Funny Going On. And there's another good song from 1953. Comedian Red Buttons had a song called Strange Things Are Happening.
Red Buttons,
There's another one you want to listen to.
Maybe we should go out with Red Buttons, Strange Things Are Happening. I bet it's on YouTube, guys. Thank you. If that's any good, we'll play that. Thank you so much, John. I'm sure it is good. You're a great listener and great patriot, and we always enjoy hearing from you. Recognize that guy's voice. He calls in a few times a year. Adrian in the great state of Texas. Go ahead, Adrian.
Hi, I'm calling from El Paso, Texas, and here the epicenter of the drug war and Obama's Fast and Furious. And actually, I had a question. On the 2012 issue, I was wondering what good does it do to prepare if we ignore the hyper-advanced, sophisticated astronomy of the Mayans?
Well, I do know the Mayans did have pretty advanced. For their time, they knew about stars that weren't even really visible, we believe, with telescopes. We don't know how they did that. But then they also had some pretty backward stuff with the human sacrifice and things going on. But the priest class always ends up degenerating down that road. But I don't think the world's going to end. I did a whole show on that. What was it, yesterday, or was it last? It was yesterday. I talked quite a bit about the fact that I think it's a hoax. Because, even the Mayans didn't say the world was going to end December 21st.
Well, basically, they said it was the end of the fifth age, and And this is the end of the fifth age. And what basically the theory is, at every age, it's ended in cataclysm. And a pole shift is imminent. And also, why would the government start building huge underground bases in Denver?
Well, because we know why. Because it's all designed around a Russian or Chinese nuclear attack, because they're busy rolling weapons systems in and around Russia and China and trying to pick a nuclear war with them. Joel Skousen breaks that down in the new film, Strategic Relocation.
Right. Well, in my opinion, real strategic relocation right now, I mean, 23 days away from the actual pole shift, if you believe in it. Right now, I would relocate away from the coastal
I know. There's people that say there's going to be water all the way up to the Rocky Mountains, up to Denver. And I just, you know what? I'm staying right here. And I bet you money I'm going to be on air December 21st, December 22nd. Normally, I would take off that entire week because I've promised my wife. There's always some reason I end up working in and around holidays. But my children are growing up, and I'm hardly knowing them some of the time. But I'm going to end up doing the 21st, 22nd, probably even the 23rd, because I'm going to predict now, when the world doesn't end December 21st, people are going to say, the calculations, you heard it here first, are that the Gregorian calendar was off 3 days. It's now the 24th. We're all dead on the 24th. Run for the hills. And then when that doesn't happen, it was off a week. And so there'll be months of imminent destruction. Meanwhile, they're putting cancer viruses in the vaccines. Meanwhile, they're killing us. And diabetes is up 3,000%. Cancer almost 3,000%. Pediatric cancer 10,000%. Breast cancer leading the world. Total police state, New World Order takeover. But it's always just something over the hill. And look, Adrian, I'm not saying you're bad to think maybe this is coming. Maybe it is. Maybe we're all dead. So what are you going to do in your last 23 days before pole shift and, mountains being thrust up 10,000 feet and liquid magma spewing out and Keebler elves running around vampirically drinking blood, dogs and cats living together, possums flapping with pink wings? What are you going to do?
Well, the actual prediction is that the 9 gods with lowercase g would return, including Kukulkan. And, well, there's a lot of things we don't know about their history.
That scares the...
Actually, their Mayan calendar there, the way they used to... the Mayan year was actually more accurate than the atomic clock.
I understand that. So listen, let me just ask you this question. So if it's not the 21st, are you going to call me back on the 22nd?
I am. Actually, I wanted to know if you're going to do an end-of-the-world show and go down with the ship with us,
Yeah, like Woody Harrelson at the end of 2012 when everybody's dying, and he's like reporting as the fireballs come towards him. All right, I appreciate you joining us, sir. Thank you. I just, what? There could be an end to world if the unexpected data from Large Hadron Collider suggests the collision may be producing a new type of matter, and they go on in physics.com. It's admitted that a lot of physicists say it could destroy the Earth with strangelets and other things it can create. If you don't know what a strangelet is, have you seen the newest Star Trek? I'm not really a Star Trek fan because it's so ridiculous. I mean, I like the old Star Trek because it's so funny. I actually kind of like Captain Kirk. Let's be honest. I kind of worship Captain Kirk a little bit sometimes, and it's not right because it's so cheesy. But the kind of newer stuff takes itself too seriously, so it's just cheesiness that takes itself serious, not funny. Cheesiness that doesn't take itself serious, very funny, especially when Captain Kirk, a.k.a. William Shatner, covers it. But the new one is very accurate, where they have that antimatter strangelet and they put it in the center of Vulcan and it sucks in. That's actually what it would look like. If they create one of these particles, it will fall to the center of the Earth. And depending on the type of particle size or what it does, it may take a minute, it may take a week. It'll start doubling in size and pulling matter into it. A black hole will form. And then by the time we notice an earthquake, we'll be gone like that. And then the globalists will, won't get to act trendy anymore and go to events and give each other awards and act powerful. So that wouldn't be very much fun, would it? Who's up next here? Tim in Washington, you're on the air. Go ahead.
How's it going, Alex?
Pretty good, sir.
I've been wargaming in my mind to figure out what would happen if stuff really did hit the fan. And I was kind of curious, is there a sheriff or is there a precedent in America where local citizens, everyday citizens without training could be deputized to fight back, say, a UN invasion?
Yeah, it's called civil defense, which is based under the militia, and we had to delay it because you used some profanity there. We didn't edit that guy, but we had to cut out a few seconds because what he said. And yeah, there's basically your answer. I mean, just educate the people on the subject of liberty, and tyranny will vanish like phantoms at dawn. Thomas Jefferson. Bill in Wisconsin, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
Intriguing interview with John McAfee.
Yeah, what'd you think of that?
Still a U.S. citizen. Yeah, if he's still a U.S. citizen, has he, for this latest alleged murder, why hasn't he gone to the U.S. consulate or asked the U.S. government for intervention?
I don't know if he can get there. He's pretty much hiding out in the woods, running around from house to house. But I don't know the details of it, but that's what he's basically described on his blog. But I should have asked him that question. That's a good question.
Yes, absolutely. And that's all I had.
I mean, he probably doesn't trust the U.S. consulate. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. The government down there is corrupt, but we have a corrupt one up here,
Let me ask you this question. What do you think about him? I mean, he's obviously eccentric, but, I mean, do you think he did it?
No, he's totally telling the truth. I believe that. And later on, I'm going to run that audio of that interview on our layered voice analysis technology, and I'm going to prove that he's telling the truth.
Very interesting. All right. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. We take you out with red buttons. If I was an Easter bunny, stay with us.
I answered, don't blame me.
Be so nice to the bureaucrats telling us we were racist and we were scums. We didn't want to give them all our money. But now that we figured out they're a bunch of authoritarian criminals, it's just time to tell them that, hey, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah, I got no friends because they read the papers with me. Feeling mean. No more. Welcome back. Look at this headline by Kurt Nimmo up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. FERC chairman dubs 22 rifles terrorist weapons. That's right. The chairman of the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has provided aspiring terrorists with an idea. Use a .22 rifle to take out power transformers. And that's John Wellinghoff at the Bloomberg government breakfast in Washington. I don't think we have the level of physical security we need. And he goes, all al-Qaeda miscreant, you mean people that work for the globalist, could get 200 yards away with a .22 rifle, could take down the power grid. Oh, so hype that up. Well, we got to take guns because they could bring down the power grid with them. Mr. Wellington did not provide any explanation of why over the last decade the terrorist group has not targeted the power grid of the United States. Maybe because it's totally manufactured and too busy taking down governments for the globalist. But he has now created the anti-gun scare with the Bloomberg breakfast, calling for needed solutions to be introduced, which goes on the link calling for restrictions to the Second Amendment. That's kind of a pure news article Kurt wrote. He might want to, Kurt's in their ad, he's right through the hall, right through that door. We might want to add something that the solutions are going after those evil guns, because that's what they say there. Yeah, so, you know, the terrorists, they're everywhere. We've got to do something right now. Now, I mentioned this earlier. I don't think that passing through the galactic plane, whether that's true or not, or, you know, any of this stuff, or the winged serpent that they had to sacrifice, you know, little kids to, or, you know, the sun wouldn't come back. I just really don't put much stock in what the Mayans say. And I've been attacked a lot for not thinking the world's going to end December 21st, but I will be here live on that Friday, and I will be live that Sunday, because still we'll be hearing, of course, that it's still the end of the world, and I just haven't recognized it yet. So we will be covering that ad nauseum. But if you go to Infowars.com, we can punch up my screen. I'll show people this. Experts to study whether robots will exterminate humanity. And in the big university study that is taking place at Cambridge, They're mainly looking at extinction events from rise of the machines, because machines, their AI are being designed or they're building towards it from a military perspective. And so the concern here is that they'll be a military in nature and decide to just get rid of humanity. You know what? I don't see that as the greatest threat. I see globalist technocrats in control of automated ground, sea, and air drone robots will be able to attack humanity and run false flags and say people hacked the machines or run attacks themselves, and it won't be a military refusing gun confiscation because the robots won't say no. And again, if you go to this article that's up at Infowars.com, I would say the big threat is Hadron superconducting super collider, because they admit that it is a possibility it could cause things a lot bigger than large hydrogen explosions. And the government's admission of developing antimatter weapons, which remain classified, but they admit they've developed, and also bioweapons and things like that. I think that's some of the biggest threats we face. See you on the Nightly News tonight, 7 o'clock Central. PrisonPlanet.tv.
Thank you for listening to GCN.
10 memberships, price of one right now.
GCNlive.com
Give them to everybody you know.
today.